Good morning, folks, and back to see you all again. Thank you so much for attending. We have with us Professor Sadagopan, the current Director, President of IEEE Bangalore, a PhD granting university and a first of its kind generation university that started in India in late 90s. He's no stranger to us in the IT industry, a godfather of IT education, a stalwart as far as IT systems and strategy is concerned, a visionary, a planner, and one of the leading father figures as far as IT in the world map is known, and I think one of those forerunners in putting India on the world map of IT as well. He obtained his MS and PhD degree from Purdue University, USA in 1979. He holds a BE honors degree from Madras University, 1973. He's no stranger to the IITs and the IIMs around India, and his pet research includes multi-criteria optimization, simulation, enterprise computing. That's just a few of the things that he does. Professor Sadagopan is fellow of UK's IET, Computer Society of India, Institution of Engineers. He's a member of IEEE and ACM, and his work is published in several international journals, both in European as well as in American publications. He's won numerous awards, a Fulbright Fellowship in 1995 for Champion of Humanity, awards from the Hindustan Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary Honor of Vocational Excellence, and also the NDTV Digital Pioneer Award in 2016, just to name a few. His association with industry, his association with institutes of honor is second to none. He's been in he's worked in consulted and worked in several private and public sector corporations in India, in the computing, communications, software, automotive, oil and power industries as well, and not to forget the social sector that he's also known in. And I'm sure that many of us and all of us have read at least a column from Professor Sadagopan in the Times of India, where he writes regularly, and we are honored to have him here today to talk to us about what next, the future of education, skills, and learning as we know it in the new world. So over to you, Professor, and thank you again. And we welcome you from our hearts for this wonderful interactive session that you're going to talk to us about.
Thank you, Sunil. Good morning, everyone. It's a privilege and honor to be with you all in Youth Career Connect 2020. I understand that you are all from all over the country. In fact, some of you are even outside the country. I initially thought it is a Bangalore crowd, but yesterday Ravi distributed crowd. Hope it makes sense. I'm for having me. So my format is like that. About 40 minutes I will do the talk, and so that there is time for 20 minutes for questions. And just to ensure that we don't have to wait for the questions only at the end, I'm planning that my talk itself is in 4 parts. One on IT, which I know best. Second thing is education. Third one is on skills, and the last one on learning. And in each one, I will spend about 8-9 minutes. Then probably a couple of minutes, we could have some questions. Okay. Within that, what I do is I set out a thought and give a context, and then spend a minute each on yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Okay, this is the format. That clear? Okay, that's good. Okay, so most of us got into IT at that time. The word IT was not even used. It used to be only called a simple computer science. And the only core competence we guys have or had at that time was our ability to deal with what is genuinely Indian called 0 and 1. So we knew zeros and ones, they were our best friends. We could add reasonably large number of them, reasonably fast, and almost invariably right, and not getting tired, right? We could do the same thing for a multiplication. And then obviously some of the applications that needed it happened to be things like census. So it just worked out well. Then once we started adding large number of zeros and ones, we said we need a larger memory to store them. But soon we ran out of it. We needed what is called secondary storage. So we also had to store and retrieve large number of zeros and ones reasonably fast and reliably. And little later, we found that things are distributed. We also have to transfer them at what is called the speed of light, called networking. So computing, database, and networking kind of created this huge enterprise called IT. Okay. And then the earlier applications, one of the boring stuff about adding and multiplication, but nonetheless very interesting because it means a lot. All of us, significantly large number of us work for a salaried job. At the end of the month, which is just tomorrow, okay, we all need a paycheck, right? To compute the paycheck is a boring stuff called payroll, okay? So that is how payroll and a little bit inventory control and ERP, that was yesterday of zeros and ones, okay? Today, what is happening is that zeros and ones, we ourselves were not prepared. We guys had no idea that zeros and ones can do a lot more things. And then we got into something called digital imaging. So classic example is, there used to be a company called Kodak, which made cameras for a little more than a century. And so amazingly successful company, made millions and millions of cameras, also made rolls which goes into the film called film. And then also created indirectly millions of stores where the film will get processed. That is how we started our career. We will buy a camera maybe once in a couple of years. We take pictures over weeks and develop it over days. And of course, your generation does very different, right? You do everything on the click of a second. So what really happened was the camera became digital. Once the camera became digital, there was a time when we used to call Kodak moment. Our graduation day, our wedding day, we used to take a picture on Kodak camera and then proudly display it. So we used to call it Kodak moment. But in 2009, Kodak had its Kodak moment, filed for bankruptcy, because digital cameras, Nokia phones with digital cameras sold more cameras than Kodak and all others put together. So essentially zeros and ones could completely transform what is called the film industry, starting with still films and the videos and the movies, blah, blah, blah. Same thing got started happening in ticketing. You all know e-ticketing, right? You all do what's called book my show, completely digital. Government used to do a lot of things like documents and certificates and identification. You all know Aadhaar, okay? So what happened was things started changing everywhere and then trading became all electronic. Many of you would know there's something called National Stock Exchange, which is a complete digital exchange from this country. And then all of you know that today you have internet banking. So what really happened is that the zeros and ones are trying to impact every human endeavor. And as we kind of move tomorrow, we will see all things getting digital. Already you are seeing it, particularly during the COVID time. Bank without bank premises, stores without a storefront, and medical image is changing everything. And AI and ML and analytics, and driverless cars, so a lot more things are happening. But what is the core of it? Because this is important for the other stuff. I'm going to spend another 2 minutes on it because it is important. So you might get bombarded with lots and lots of jargon. Don't get confused. You might have heard of AI and ML. Somebody would say analytics, somebody would say big data, somebody would say autonomous vehicles, somebody will say robotics. But let me give in a 1 minute, it's a continuum. Lots and lots of devices, including your smartwatches and smartphones, will throw in a lot more data. You will find numerous smart devices in the next 10 years. So they all will become IoT. the Internet of Things. Thanks to the Internet of Things, there will be a lot more data, and that is big data. The technology of analyzing big data is big data. But you analyze big data because you want to get some insight. There is no point having hundreds of numbers. What do the numbers mean? That is analytics called data analytics. But a lot of analytics, you need to have a hypothesis. Sometimes you may not even be able to get a hypothesis. Can machine generate hypothesis? That is what is machine learning and AI is all about. And traditionally, robotics used to be associated with machines, but today robotics software, there is something called RPA, robotic process automation, a driverless car, a drone, these are all robotics, okay? In fact, along with NIMHANS in Bangalore, National Institute of Mental Health and Allied Sciences, we have a neurosurgeon registered for a PhD in computer science. He has a patent on what is called a snake robo. The robo will get inside your brain. It looks like a snake and it will do surgery, okay? So things will change, okay? So be ready for that, okay? And what is most important before I get out of this topic is that not everyone has to become an IT just because IT is being talked about. You could be a great doctor, you could be a great lawyer, you could be a great accountant. With IT, you would be a better doctor, better lawyer, better accountant. And that is what you should really be, okay? So I think I was listening to Ravi in the last session. I'll repeat what Ravi said. Does not matter what you learn. What matters is how well you learn. Learn things really, really good. Tomorrow is not going to be for ordinary people. Tomorrow is going to be extraordinary people, okay? Maybe I'll give a little break and quickly, any questions? Nikita.
No questions so far, sir.
No questions so far, then I get into the second one, okay? Education, okay? So education is something which is dear to many of us.
So, Professor, sorry to interrupt you, but before you go into your second segment, I request questions to be posted to us so that, you know, we could throw up certain questions to Professor at the end of each segment. But however, if you would wish to ask those questions at the end of the session, we would then take them at the end of the session. So please feel free to contribute your questions, your thoughts, and ask us your questions because we want your voice to be heard. Thank you.
Okay, just to provoke the audience, no questions means two things. One is the speaker made no sense. The second one is the audience don't care. Okay, I hope both of them are not true. Okay, hopefully we will have questions after 10 minutes. Okay,
thank you,
so
Professor.
let me get on to the education. Okay, so I think what is important is to kind of step back, because I did see in the last session, a lot of people ask us saying which course to do, etc. Don't jump into those things. I think it is important. I think one of the nice things with COVID has done to all of us is it has given us some time. Let us use the time to ponder, use this time to step back, use this time to ask some hard questions. Education is centered around knowledge. So there is an old Sanskrit statement which says, Ya vidya sa vimuktaye. Knowledge is what liberates you, makes you free. I think the education should make you free, education should make you independent. And probably Tagore said it best when he said, the famous one, I quote Tagore, where mind is without fear, where mind is without fear, head is held high, and knowledge is free. Okay, I think that is something which continues to be relevant for every generation, including your generation. Quickly, what happened to education yesterday, today, tomorrow, if we see, until yesterday, we had the model of what is called the sage on the stage. You know, some of us go on stage. In fact, most of the colleges will even have a slightly raised platform so that we are all more visible. So we are really the sage on the stage. And our weapons were blackboard and a chalk. Okay, that also evolved, became whiteboard and colorful chalks. In fact, we even had R&D on what is called, you know, some of our colleagues in 70s and 80s in IITs, they used to have allergy for dust. So we used to have an R&D and made what is called dustless chalks. Okay, so technology evolves all the time. Okay, but somewhere along, I think the mid 80s and early 90s came slide, And then Microsoft came with something called PowerPoint, the PPTs, okay, that completely changed everything. And one thing has happening in 2020 is called Zoom. Okay, Zoom is the new platform for everybody's delivery. But what will happen tomorrow? I think some of you had asked this question in the previous session I was watching. So education will become more of a blended learning. So I don't think that education will become all online. Okay, we are not robots, we are human beings. We still want to meet with human beings, classmates, professors. However much you hate the professor, I'm sure sometime you still respect the professor, right? At that time, you still want to meet and tell. You know, we make mistake, but sometimes we make sense. When we make sense, I know that having been a teacher for 45 years, there is a gleam of thank you in the end of your eyes that we made sense. At that time, you want to meet the professor, okay? So it is important. So this is what we call blended learning. The classroom will get flipped. Today, what happens is I deliver something and then you ask me some questions. Instead of that, we deliver and put it somewhere. You read it and we use the classroom only for questions. Maybe classes will become far more interesting than what they are today. The offline and online will kind of combine, and we do explore the NPTEL, the National Program on Technology Enabled Learning, some 4,500 courses available free on YouTube. The open courseware from institutes like MIT and Stanford, a whole range of MOOCs, the massively online open courseware from Coursera, edX, and a whole bunch of them. And recently, IIT Madras has put out an interesting bachelor's degree program. And we at IIIT and Upgrad, we offer an online program on analytics. And there are new online universities coming. Okay, so slowly technology permits what we call quality with scale. So this is very interesting. Quality with scale is possible. Earlier, the open universities and the so-called evening colleges, the problem was we could not do quality with scale. We could do the scale, but quality dramatically came down. Okay. But what I don't want the youth to make mistakes. We also made these mistakes in our time. And maybe you should make your share of mistakes, but you can learn from our mistake. You can make another set of mistakes. If you don't make mistakes, we are not human beings, right? If you don't fall, you never learn how to ride a bicycle. But how do you fall without hurting you? Okay. That is the trick, right? So don't mix up education with degree at a college. I think too many of you mix up education with just a degree. I had to pursue a BTech. I had to go to an IIT. Okay, so it is important. Premier institutes, I have been part of them. But it's not necessary that, and once again, I have to do engineering, I have to do robotics, okay? Education is beyond all that, okay? And some of us believe the future of education will be, okay, I could be controversial, but nonetheless, let me make a statement. No degree, any college, interdisciplinary. I do tell the students on the day of when the new batch of students join, I'm actually doing it these days because online, we normally used to do it face to face. I used to kind of jokingly tell people, welcome to IIITB. You can graduate with a BTech, an MTech, an MSc, or a PhD, as well as a special degree called a dropout. Okay, so it's possible today. Okay. So I think, some of the dropouts have been very successful. You have some very good examples of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. I don't think you mind joining their elite club, right? So that's also there, okay? But what I want you to do is that sometimes we also make mistakes. I think the educational administrators also, we spend too much time about the supporting stuff. Classroom is important, but a teacher is far more important. We spend more time discussing the classrooms and investing in classrooms than in investing people. Computers and laptops, I think Sunil talked about laptops and tablets and iPad and devices and the broadband, the BharatNet, all of them important. But education is far more important. And before I wrap up this session, I have only two quick messages. At the core of education is what I call curiosity and determination. Don't lose that. Be curious. Keep asking this question. Why? Irritate the professors, but ask this question. I think Only in that, only through that irritation, the best of the professor will come. Only when you ask those hard-hitting questions, the best of you will come. And sometimes ask this question, why not? Don't limit only to why. And go back to, this is, I think sometimes, I'm not saying old is gold, but not all old is bad. There are amazing things in the old also. Go and discover Nachiketa. He pestered his father, right? And he did so much sacrifice. Yamadharma offered him so many crumbs. I will offer this post, that post. He did not fall for it. And quickly, kind of, only yesterday, we had the 5th anniversary of Dr. Kalam's passing away. Read Kalam's book. He had what I call the curiosity of a child and the wisdom of a sage. Let me repeat, curiosity of a child and wisdom of the sage. He kept asking questions, okay? And the second one is determination. And remember Swami Vivekananda who said, stop not until you reach. Many of you are very inclined, but you kind of stop halfway. Don't stop halfway. Go to the logical end. Take whatever it takes, put the effort and do that. Okay, maybe I'll stop here if there are any questions.
Yeah, Nikita.
Yeah.
So we have a few questions.
Please.
So the first question is quite interesting.
Yeah.
It is, what is your opinion about cancelling examination, keeping in
Okay.
mind the current situation?
Right.
And he thinks safety is important, but learning also has to be given some priority. So what is your take on that, sir?
Okay, let me just take the first question first and then we'll come back. Second one. Okay, that fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, what happens is there are situations in life where you are faced with a dilemma. And the dilemma is a little funny. If you do, you are damned. If you don't, you are damned. Simple reason is both are not right. So cancelling the examination is not right. But sometimes what happened is, I tell you, even our institute, I talk to every one of the 700 students. And we actually thought that we have to have this online examination. But what we found was, even in a city like Bangalore, some parts of Bangalore, to be able to guarantee a 2 to 3 hours of uninterrupted internet. See, remember, uninterrupted even for a short time or even for a minute is not that easy. Okay. And second thing is that today, many of them, because what happens is both the children have come because the schools or colleges are closed. The parents both work. The parents are also working from home. Even for a what I would say, reasonably well-funded family, there is not only so much space, you don't have a space where you can take an examination with the seriousness which is needed for an end semester exam. That is also there. Okay, I'm not saying that cancelling the exam is right, but also look at not cancelling the exam. It's also equally wrong, right? And my feeling is that we have to take some decision. We can't keep it prolonged ever. And these are all extraordinary situations. And all that I would say is there is clearly no answer, because it will, see, you can't do it for every student differently. There's another problem. Some students are better off, some students are not. So I think you really can't take either of the side. Okay, I'm sorry I have given an inconclusive answer, but that is the only answer it deserves. Okay, thank you. And Nikita, I forgot the second question. Professors have the right to forget, right? What are the second one?
So, Professor, there's a very interesting question to you from Nikhil Arora, who wants to know why Triple ITB, does Triple ITB fund startups every year? And if yes, how? And if why? If not, why?
Oh, okay, so it is something like this. You see, we were actually funding up to 25 lakhs between 2003 to 2013. Okay. But what have we found was, after 2013, we found that the number of people who are available for funding, including Karnataka government, SKIT1, the national SIDBI, and a whole range of, there are so many venture funds, including, the famous ones from China are available. Okay. So we said we will get out of it because that is not something where we have the core competence. But
Right.
today, what I would say is that we are able to connect up. So anybody who needs funding generally is able to get access to. Okay, see, nobody can guarantee that every idea will get funded. And today we are not in, because today what we found was that our role is primarily a facilitator. So great ideas from professors, and then students sometimes as idea generator or sometimes as employees, because one of the famous company in MIT was actually using our student interns in the summer for the first year of the students, first year of the 5-year integrated MTech. Okay, so those are our core competences. So we are actually not really doing too much funding but anyone who needs funding, we will be able to do the connect. That is what we do. Okay.
Sure. Thank you. There's another one again on the education system, and I think it's the right time to ask you this. Soumya asks you a question. If she believes that the Indian education system is more focused on the theoretical side rather than on the practical side, and wants to get your opinion and what would be the best mix from a perspective of theory and practical to enhance skills.
Okay. Soumya, it's an excellent question, but I can tell you that these kind of questions will stay forever. Because what happens is that it is, okay, it's true that sometimes in India we focus more on theory than practice. But you also realize that, unlike other countries where there's a free movement of faculty between industry and academia, IITs and IIITs, this is common, most of us are back and forth, but this is still not possible for most of the university system. Things are changing, but until it changes, see, the teachers, when they don't have any practice knowledge themselves, how can they teach practice? So they should teach what they know, right? Okay, that is one part of it. So it is nothing to do with the teachers, it is to do with the system. But second thing is that I go to the other extreme, that Einstein once said, okay, a good theory can always lead to a great practice. Okay, so I think I would probably put it the other way also. Take the best from the best source. Your teachers are teaching you theory best. Summer you go to industry and do the practice. Okay, so maybe that's the best of both the worlds. Okay, and until it changes, but hopefully things are improving, things are changing, but one has to wait and see. Okay, it is nothing to do with the teachers themselves, it is to do with the system. Okay, then I move on to the next one.
Yeah,
or you have any question, Sunil?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, there is another question.
Please.
And this is from Abhijit. And
Okay.
Abhijit asks, will online sessions and classes change education system forever?
Oh, okay. Online, will it change the system forever? Is a loaded question. Loaded in the sense that, okay, has the chalk piece and the blackboard disappeared? Answer is yes and no, right? Maybe okay, so you still find that many of us in our room, we just have a little whiteboard to kind of mark it. Or maybe there is an equivalent of whiteboard on your smartphone, right? So in a sense, that idea, because essentially a blackboard is a way to take notes and share. Okay, so so similarly, what happens is even today, when I'm doing this online session, instead of you people sitting in a hall, you are sitting in your room and watching. But otherwise, it is the same, right? But the reason why online will not completely replace the regular classroom is because I think what makes teaching so interesting is some 30, 40, 50 of you will be sitting, and I would have made a blunder in my derivation, and two of you will be kind of discussing in a very, very huffed voice. Buddhu hai, thik ata nahi hai, parna ke liye kyun aaya hai, okay? And sometimes those whispers become big enough, it comes to my ear. Then I kind of look back and see, oh, okay. And I come back and kind of correct it. And he said, Buddhu ko kuch aata hai, okay? So I think those are the real part of education, right?
Dynamics.
Ability to get live feedback, and then I think you also get the feedback, right? So when the teacher makes a mistake but corrects himself, admits it, then our respect goes up, right? I think that is what education is all about, because we are all discovering knowledge together. It is not that I'm standing on a high pedestal, right? And I think having great students who will find mistakes in my stuff is the one which makes it more interesting for me to teach in primary institute. Right? So in that sense, it will not change dramatically, But yes, as I said earlier, this sometimes for teaching large classes, etc., this could be a more efficient one. In the flipped classroom model, maybe a lot of it will be put as a material, as a video, and classrooms will be used for problem solving. So in that sense, it will be blended learning. It won't be a complete replacement.
Yes,
Abhijit, are you happy with the answer? Okay, so this is what I would have liked it in the normal classroom, right? You would have said, yes, sir. Unfortunately, this model does not allow that. Anyway.
Yeah. But I'm sure that he can react and put up his hand and say yes,
Yes.
and then we'll get the answer as well.
Yes,
Yes, Nikita, you have a question.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have another question.
Yeah, please.
It's from Chandan.
Yeah.
We know that the education system is outdated, but why isn't it still changed now?
Okay, it's Chandan. It's an interesting stuff. Okay. See, this word outdated is a slightly dated idea. You know why? Because you see, if something is good, okay, it will always be relevant, but it's a question of time. Okay, see, you all see all these nice things. You know, see, many of you think AI and ML is hot topic, but how many of you know we were all part of it? 60s and early 70s was considered the spring of AI, and late 70s and early 80s was called winter of AI. That means AI died. Okay, so what happens is that many of those things, okay, are coming back today because the AI of those years could not get access to the data fast enough. Okay, so what happens is maybe most of the AI programs closed down in later half of 90s and much of 2000. They're all coming back only in the last, I would say, 5 years. Okay, so what happens is, was it dated? Don't know. But what I would say is, what you mean by dated is it relevant today? Okay, some of them may not be relevant. But my own request is, if something is deep, okay, it always will be relevant at some point in time. And see, today you find that many of the ventilators that are being designed, they were all designed long back. But thanks to COVID, they are coming up with new design, coming up with more interesting ways of manufacturing. So I think what you do is that look for quality learning. If something is solid, it will always be, it will never get outdated. Okay. But what happens is, what you possibly mean is people repeating the same thing from the old notes and the old textbooks, which have changed, etc. So possibly some polish is needed. Okay. So I appreciate your question, but do remember that nothing solid ever gets outdated.
There's a spate of questions, Professor, and I think it only does justice that we answer them.
Please go ahead. So I'm there for more for questions. I don't really have to deliver.
Yeah. The next one is from Samir Parekh, and he asks a very interesting one. Yeah. He says, nowadays, open universities are a norm, and many of us go to an open university and get our degrees. However, industry and organizations don't really consider those degrees. But he says very vehemently that we have the certificate and we also have the technical knowledge. So what do you think is a solution for people like us?
Okay, excellent question. This is something which has been bothering us for quite some time. See, what happened was open universities really wanted to democratize education. It happened very well. You know, the UK Open University was extremely successful in 80s, and our own India, Indira Gandhi National Open University. So IGNOU was the only open university which actually ensured there was quality at scale. So they would ensure that you get the material, they will ensure you read the material, they would even call and check, and then there will be examinations, okay, there will be assignments. So what happens is, remember, education is just not giving you a textbook and you putting it under the pillow and everything gets into the head. No, it has to go through your processor, you have to understand, and we should also kind of check. Unfortunately, what happened is, because universities were starved of money, and they found that open university is a nice way of making money, they all fell for making money. And once they fell for making money, open universities actually kind of quality went down dramatically. I'm sure you as an individual, you could have taken it seriously. You as an individual could have internalized this. You would have real knowledge. You are like the so-called Ekalavya. Unfortunately, organizations don't know you. So you get painted with the same brush for everybody else. So you see, I can tell you this much, without taking a name. There are organizations which are leaders in this space. But if you go to their own open university offices, they would not hire one person from that university. That means they don't believe in themselves. Okay. So, but hopefully things are changing. Part of the reason is you would have seen that, I'll take an example of companies like TCS last year allowed what is called lateral kind of entries. They said, look, you don't have to be an IIT or a triple IT or an NIT. You could be from any tier 2, tier 3 college, take the test. If you prove that if you do well, you will still be called for interview and you will be hired. So now technology permits that I can check that you have indeed learned it. And that bridge or that barrier we are removing. So hopefully that should improve. Okay, but I'm sure from your side it can be frustrating. So I'm sorry about it, but things are improving.
Professor, one last question before you move into your next segment. This is a question from industry. We have somebody who's asking us, how relevant will institutions be in the current normal while they take on industry?
Okay, so in what sense? Could you just clarify?
In the sense that, they want to understand how will institutions make industry more relevant?
Okay, you see, okay, let me kind of ask counter question to the industry folks. You see, when the companies come and sometimes tell me that, look, sir, your students are not well prepared. So just to provoke them, I ask the question, okay, are you able to make use of what they have? They have tons and tons of knowledge. Maybe your job does not demand it. Okay, so the idea is just to provoke, not. I think what happens is, as they say, it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
I think you have to see what happens is that most of the time your HR managers put out some 2-letter words and 3-letter words full of jargon. So that is what students think they are important. They pick it up, but they are quite often superficial. But if they have understood the underlying part of it, all of them would have made sense. So maybe I think particularly your HR managers and institutes should work together. Why are you putting those things as important? Most of the time, I would say your job descriptions are wrong, right? Particularly for fresh students, because you see, the question is that some company gets Java technology based one, so we expect everything to be Java based. Somebody says it's only open source, okay. So we can't teach everything, right? But we teach the foundation. Okay. So a quick summary is sit with the professors and kind of find out what is the difference. We are all open, but you should also be open too. But don't get too bogged down with these 2-letter and 3-letter words. VC++, KCK+, etc. Okay.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay. So let me kind of move on to the second topic, that is the skills. Okay. Okay. What happens is, like this is something which I also had noted it down. So quite often industry relevant education is what being talked about. And in fact, the Skillablers of Ravi and Sunil is all about this. Okay. And I would say, look at Youth Career Connect of United States. Okay. Okay. You will get some more idea. Skills are important. Okay. But if you really look at yesterday, we used to, what is that confusion used to be, or what is the normal characterization? Whenever you think of skills in our time, you used to think of ITI, a machinist, Industrial Training Institute, an automobile technician. Okay. But it is changing today. Today is all about search engine optimization, social media marketing. Okay. So all that. But I think what will happen is that if you get a chance, go and read this book by Satya Nadella, the current CEO of Microsoft. And he has a very interesting, he's something who speaks from the heart because he has some very special family circumstances about his son's health and stuff like that. So he makes a very interesting statement. For too long, we human beings have tended to machines. It is time that human beings tend to human beings and machines tend to machines. right? So caregiving would become the real skill of tomorrow, okay? And it could be, don't think of caregiving only as a healthcare, because that is what comes to your mind immediately, okay? The nurses, etc. But I think one of the reasons why in India we have lots of confusion, and I keep attending sessions like this, lots of questions asked, okay? Partly because we do not have a caregiver for education. See, a lot of times what happens is somebody is interested in something. His parents tell them something. His boyfriend or girlfriend said something. And then they get admission for something. And all of them are different and they are confused, unhappy. First and foremost, I keep asking some students, they said, sir, we want to be hired by Google. But I said, look, you should ask, does Google want to hire you? What will Google find in you that they don't find in others that they will hire you? So I think you also have to do that match, okay? The second match, which you also have to do is that how much, you see, I keep jokingly telling my students is that, look, in our generation, when it comes to selecting our life partner, we broadly went by our parents. Luckily today, my students don't go completely with their parents. That's a good thing. But when it comes to career, they still go with the parents. I said, look, don't look, quite often I'll take a little part at the parents also. Quite often the parents want to relive a new life through their children. I couldn't go to IIT, at least my daughter should go to IIT. Maybe that is also wrong. I think parents should allow the children to live their life and not relive their life. Okay, that is the second part. And the third part, which you should probably do, is somehow ensure that you pursue your stuff, you pursue your heart. Okay, and if you pursue your heart, I think that you will be unstoppable. I think that is what would be my take. Okay. Okay, so I'll go. Okay, so the next one is about the caregiver part. Okay, and some of the mistakes possibly you should avoid. Sunil and I belong to a generation where things are changing, but not changing to the same extent. So skill comes low in the pecking order. An IIT looks so high and an ITI looks so low. I think it's a society that makes it. I'm sure I don't know how many of you know, there was a conversation between the US President and Steve Jobs, Barack Obama and Steve Jobs, the Apple CEO then. How come Apple is not able to make iPhones in United States? And Steve Jobs' answer is very interesting. United States does not have 5,000 high quality tool designers. They're only available in China. So a tool designer is important. It is nothing to do with the design, amazing design of iPhone. Somebody to translate it into a piece of physical hardware, right? So what happens is that we are not, I think we need to kind of change it. Even though it takes about 2 minutes, let me give you this example. This is a quick example. So luckily we have time. All of you know Oil and Natural Gas Corporation called ONGC. Okay, so they have amazing stuff. They even have an offshore fire drilling platform about 100 miles or 200 kilometers away from Bombay. Right in the midst of a sea, there's a ship which drills oil and pumps lots and lots of oil. So those kind of ships once in a while will get fire. When they are into fire, okay, so you have to put it down in a couple of days, couple of weeks maximum. If you don't put, okay, they're all costing millions and millions of dollars of investment, everything will go waste. But once in a while, okay, such accident will happen. And there are only 2 parties in the whole planet who will be able to put it out. And whenever something happens, you have to call them. Those fellows come, these are big planes. Small planes can land, etc., etc. This fellow comes with a couple of planes, about some 100 mechanics. He has an amazing number of tools, etc. He charges, I think, of the order of $100 million. In about 7 or 8 days, he will put it out the fire. So I had a chance to interact with him, and I asked him, and he said that, look, somewhere along he thought that this skill would be needed because there are hundreds and thousands, a few hundreds of such platforms once in a while. And I don't get a job every day, but I get a job maybe 3-4 times a year. But I make $400 million, my cost will be another $300 million. I still make my $100 million. And he built this unusual skill. Okay, I think that is what such skills has been demand. Can you make it? Okay, so internalizing it today, you all see, you must have heard of this, a lot about these ventilators. So many are being talked about, right? So remember that you as a mechanic or you as a special technician, you have to make the ventilator work, make the ventilator work at its best, make use of the best ventilator for that purpose, because every person is different, every case is different, every patient is different. And that is what skill is all about. How do you contextualize that kind of a knowledge? It is not something which you know, but you also have to contextualize it. And that contextualization does not come easy. I think so. What happens is, okay, knowledge is very much part of the skills. And one of the good things is that, I feel very happy that sometimes our students are able to take a position and somebody said, I will become a chef. I might have done a master's in IT, but I want to become a chef, because I think chefs actually get better paid than IT professionals. And to be a chef is also cool. Okay, so things are changing. And, developed countries like Western Europe or United States, this kind of freedom is available to individual. That freedom is still not widely available in India because of the social stigma. Hopefully it will go, but I think it is important to focus on skills. So skills, okay. So let me take another couple of minutes, then we'll open it to other questions, because the final one is the learning. I think, okay, so until yesterday, it was very narrow focus. And the competition was intense. You all know the JEE. I call it JEE Asura. JEE is also an Asura, right? It has its own problems, okay? Today, luckily, more opportunities are there compared to our generation. There are more, and I find that people pursue National Law School. People go to NID, people do design, people go to biology, they go to NCBS, okay? They go to fashion technology, NIFT, okay? So it's good. But I think we need to have much wider opportunities. Hopefully tomorrow, I think one of the questions somebody asked, will all the learning become online learning? Yes, quite a bit of learning will use online learning. Online learning also allows what is called on-demand learning. So what will happen tomorrow is abundant opportunities, okay? But one of the things which I have a request to all you youngsters, what happens is you have learned this word called outsourcing, probably too early in your life. In your school, you outsource the education to parents and friends. Your mom says, her son goes to NPS, so my son should also go to NPS. Your dad says that my friend's daughter goes to DPS and my daughter should also go to this. And I think you should also explore the school. I don't know how many of you have heard of interesting school called The School. It's a completely different kind of a school. Okay, so maybe we should. In the college, I think some of the industry friends talked about, I did mention about the HR fellows. The recruiters, you outsource education to the recruiters. Okay, whatever Google says, you think it is important. But what you don't realize is by the time 10 years later, something else will come. Remember, Google did not exist until 1998, right? So I think, and much worse, at least for the IT companies, this is a big problem. All our students who join IT companies, they outsource the education to the HR managers. If they send me to ISB, I'll go to ISB. If they send me to IIM, I'll go to IIM. If they send me to Wharton, I'll go. So whatever they send, okay, don't give up. Education is your stuff. This is exactly like health. My doctor says, sir, don't outsource your health to the doctor. You should own your health. He has even given me a nice book. I used to have a little bit of backache. There is a book called Your Back Owner's Manual. When you buy a TV, you get your TV manual, right? Like that, we all have a body, so it has its own manual. Okay, so let us not outsource it to the doctor. So similarly, learning must become lifelong learning. That is one area where online education will be a great help. And if possible, something deeper, learn to learn. Learning to learn will be the most important thing in the world. Okay, so keep learning as lifelong, learn to learn, focus on skills, and I think in the new era, it is going to be the depth. And going back to what I said in the beginning, how well you have learned is more important than what you have learned. And far more important for your generation, learning will become far more interdisciplinary. Engineering and medicine will become common. Medicine and law will become common. Law and biology, technology and law. These things are particularly in this country because we have this, AIMS, IITs, IIMs, etc. At least if you look around the world, they generally have become part of the larger university. Harvard Business School is part of Harvard. Wharton is part of UPenn. Okay, so Sloan is part of MIT. Okay, GBS is part of Stanford. Okay, so unfortunately in India we have broken them out, but things are changing. So, but keep the interdisciplinarity very much in mind. Okay, so maybe I'm open to questions. Thank you, Sunil.
Yes, thank you so much, Professor.
Yeah.
Very insightful. I have a question from none other than Quizmaster Giri Pickbrain.
Oh, very great, privileged.
And he wants to pick your brain with a question which says, how would you advocate this fertile environment to try entrepreneurship for youth? Often in India, a good job offers stops a dream.
Yes.
How do you react?
Okay, excellent question. And you see, with you as a quest master, we always fail. But nonetheless, let me give a try. Okay. See, okay, I tell you, I am an incorrigible optimist. And some of my optimism is also based on data. I will give you an actual example. So 15 years back, I still remember that one of the students wanted to pursue an entrepreneurial stuff. And he happens to be a boy. And then one day he came and said, sir, I'm going strong on my date and I have a job with IBM. And my date has made it abundantly clear. If I take up the job with IBM, so she will pursue. Otherwise, she will drop me. So what do? I said, join IBM. That's it. Okay. So he joined IBM. But 5 years back, things are changing. Similar situation, a boy comes and says that, look, sir, I have a job with SAP. And my date says that, look, if you're going to work for a boring company called SAP, forget it. I will look elsewhere. So he started a startup and he's doing extremely well. Okay. The bottom line is today, to start up is also socially accepted. Remember, I am really talking of, see, you can start up at any age. Okay, I'm not talking of people starting at 35, 45, 50. I'm really talking of people who are in 20s, a few years after the college. See, this is also the time when they are young. This is also the time they're looking for life partners. This is also the time they're settling down in life. So at that time, until recently, okay, a job was too attractive that they will never take an entrepreneurial route. But today, I think because socially accepted, the parents are accepting. And also in Indian context, there is also an interesting social network people have felt. At least the students whom I talk to, so the husband and wife, also both are working professionals. So what happened? One of them decided to stay with a job, other person take the risk, because you also need a risk-taking ability. See, other countries are rich countries. Remember, India is still a poor country. So we should not forget, right? There could be one Ambani who could be rich, but bulk of the people are not rich, okay? That's the reality. So what happened? You also need the social network. The social networks are falling in place. Last but not the least, earlier, if you are not successful, you are kind of condemned. Today, you are not condemned. And companies like IBM in India, if you had failed, they actually recruit you because they think you would know the actual pain of that. You would have also become mature enough with that failure. So it is a social system, acceptance of failure, but not the least. Today, even if you are not successful, somebody will acquire you. So it's fine. Okay. And it could be acquire, it could be acquisition, hiring you and hiring with all your staff. So things are much better now. So hopefully I will pass the test of Quizmaster.
Thanks so much for that response, Professor. I have another question from Shafiq Ahmed, and he asks, what is your perspective on MOOCs, that is massive open online courses offered by edx.org, MIT, Harvard? Why is there less traction in adoption for MOOCs in India?
Okay, see, MOOCs, you see, even elsewhere, it is not that the MOOCs have actually set everything on fire, right? So even though they come from the MIT and Stanford, until recently, there was no direct impact on it. So what happens is MOOCs complement the education system we already have. So MOOCs are really useful for working professionals who really want to augment their knowledge, and they find it far more convenient to go through your MOOC rather than take 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, 1 week off, 1 semester off from their jobs. Okay, so that point of view, MOOCs have been extremely successful. The reason why they are not taking off that big way is that, so first of all, we Indians, we don't make that much money. And the second thing is we are the first generation of people who are making money, significantly large number of 10 million people who have got these first generation jobs. So saving is more important for them. So we don't really pay a $3,500 to take a course or a $1,500 to take a course, which is so easy for our counterparts, etc. And also what happened, governments there also have a very complex system. For most of the professionals working, the money which you pay for online education, either you get a complete tax benefit or you get it paid by some other department. Okay, those things are not in place in this country. MOOCs have a place, but do not confuse MOOCs with the universities. MOOCs are not going to replace the universities. Okay, that will never happen, because I think, okay, let me kind of conclude with very interesting stuff. Again, going back sometimes, from a perspective point of view, see, typically 20% of the learning is what is called a classroom learning. You learn from a professor or professors. 20% is what you learn by doing it. You go to the library, you solve homeworks, you do problems, etc. Another 20% is what you learn from your classmates. You do joint projects, you discuss with them, you have a chai per charcha, all those things. Okay. And 20% is what you will do in some internship or maybe do a project or a thesis. And 20% is you learn in life.
Right.
Okay. So all that MOOCs, etc. talk only about the 20%. And remember, you need 100% of education. Okay. So I think let us not mix up things. Okay. Thank you.
Right. I think, Professor, one last question from Nikita, and then I think we'll let you go.
Yes. Thank you.
So we have a question.
Yeah.
And this is a very interesting question, even from my point of view.
Okay.
That is, in all big institutions, most of them wants very high marks, but
Right.
the talent of the person is not given as much importance as marks.
Right.
So what is your take on that?
My take is very simple. See, all of us would like to kind of explore, unexplored areas, okay, and give opportunities to students who do not have a high marks. Unfortunately, there is no mechanism. So when you have, a million students wanting to kind of compete for 10,000 seats, you do not have anything else. Last but not the least, many countries, at least I would say United States is one country to a large extent, where the professors are trusted, the teachers are trusted. So in this country, unfortunately, teachers are not trusted. A court, Supreme Court or a 95, somebody has 194, somebody 4, they think it is fair. But you say that, look, these are the 4 professors who spent 1 hour with the student. They come with 794 and 795. They would say, no, it is very subjective. So what do I do? Okay. So it is not that we in premier institutes are very happy with this, but I'll give a homework. If you can come with something better, we all will love it. We will take it with both the hands. But we do not seem to have alternative. And I wish sometime the courts take the research opinion, but until that happens, we have to go by this exam. I may not have satisfied you with an answer. I have been evasive, but that is the fact. That's truth. I have to speak the truth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. I think we have Ravi online. So if I could,
Oh, okay. So that's good.
I could request Ravi to come on
Yes.
video.
Ravi, I was listening to your previous session. Excellent. I even quoted you in my session.
Yes, yes, Professor. Thank you so much. And I have one last question before you go, Professor. Just one last question, which is from my end, very easy to ask. And I'm sure many of them who are viewing it would love to get an answer for that. How do you keep this youthful energy all the time with you, irrespective of the age you physically represent?
Oh, it's very simple. You see, every year I go up by one more year, right? I get older by a year. If you get older by a year, what happens is you get dumber by half. Whatever was my IQ becomes half. Every year it becomes half. But every year, I kind of continue to be surrounded by 16-year-old and I allow them to teach me. Okay.
Yeah.
I pretend to teach them for 4 years of BTech, but I take an unwritten agreement that for the next 45, 50 years, they'll continue to teach me. So I have teachers at all age groups all the time. And that is what makes me
wonderful,
youthful, if at all you think. Okay.
Yes,
thank you.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Professor. In fact, I've also been getting a lot of WhatsApp messages from industry veterans who have been asking a lot of questions. And this anyway is going to get into the impact report as well. So we will also come back to you, Professor, with some very interesting questions where the 3i Connect can be better established.
Yes. Thank you. And you have put out an amazing platform and you have amazing set of numbers. Yes. All the best. Okay. So I would like to see the full report. And thank you. And maybe I'll get to watch you on August 15th.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Thanks, Sunil. Thanks, Nikita. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Honor having you, Professor.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.